Hello everybody, my name is Isben Önen. I am an architect and a proud jazz journalist, and I have been teaching at the ATTP for almost about 4 years now. Before I go sharing my personal insight with my experience at the ATTP, I know that the following years will bring new exciting experiences, so there's no point in wishing this, but I wish that the significance would be understood and appreciated and supported. So about 4 years ago, my path crossed with the ATTP shortly after finishing my dissertation at the University of Applied Arts, the Angewandte at Vienna, with a dissertation titled Form in Architecture and Music, and with the subtitle Persistence of the Intellect. And then I had the chance to start teaching at the ATTP and have been teaching mostly seminars, but exceptionally, I also had the chance to teach a small studio last semester. Basically, what we're trying to do is to propose an approach so that the participants, architecture students, get the experience of going beyond the confinements of conventional architecture theory by introducing them to a new media, and it's also my focus in my research, other than parallel to humanities. Also this, since you've guessed, music and the media of oral. And what we basically do is to think of concepts that will allow these fertile grounds for expanding thinking on architecture reflexively and critically. And for that we meet. There's basically two methods that we do. I propose is that we first try to get the participants out of the spatial confinements of the university by going to, for example, visiting institutions, going to other universities, for example, the Arnold Schoenberg Center, where we went and met experts there, and we had an insight on the archive and the estate of Arnold Schoenberg here in Vienna, but also thinking back on specific concepts. So the seminars basically had one of the concepts was the parasite, and we use this most exciting and complex concept of the parasite, and to go and meet musicians, also biologists, which was also part of this exiting this usual confinements of the spatial status of the university, and going to the Vienna woods, meeting a biologist, going walking, making a wandering, and then talking about what parasite, for example, means in biology. And other than that, we meet composers, musical theoreticians, musicologists, to give us an insight to a similar and related concept as noise, for example, and how this could be related in thought and generate a reflexive thought on architecture theory again. And I think this was not only a challenging and most exciting confrontation for the architects or architecture students, but also our guests, musicologists, composers, biologists, also were very inspired, and it was also they had also an insight what architecture theory could possibly mean, and what architects and architecture historians and theoreticians, which is a whole and hard to separate, were dealing within their lives or experiences. Yes, now I'd like to read a short excerpt from my epilogue, and the dissertation that I have finished 6 years ago will finally be published as a book in the Presence Verlag. And before this Lustrum event, I decided to include an epilogue, since it has been 6 years and my confrontation intellectually with the ATTP changed a lot in my way of thinking, and my experiencing architecture, and also experiencing the design experience. So this is a part of my epilogue, which gives a personal insight of my thoughts of the ATTP and my experience there. After finishing my dissertation 6 years ago, I didn't know what to do with it. I liked carrying it around. Its weight was something I enjoyed, as if it was something important, something that was amongst those things which had to be saved in case of fire. And it was around that time that I was offered the chance to teach. The subject could not have been more challenging: architecture theory and philosophy of techniques. It was like looking at a painting with a complex understanding of abstraction. In a sense, it would be like standing in front of a certain impressionist painting for which you know what the subject matter is, but cannot be sure if the painting corresponds to your knowledge of the subject matter. The tension lies in what your eyes would have been seeing facing the real setting, but your mind would be in doubt, trying to convince you that something is not as it should have been, impure, ambiguous, yet still dwelling in its subject matter. What happened was a clash of what I brought and what I found on these new shores of a semi-utopian island in the 4th district of Vienna. I found myself being reintroduced to the concepts, some familiar ones I had also collected on the way, and had been fond of flirting with, but were handled in a way that I never would have expected. Appreciating their timelessness and renaissances, but not necessarily getting lost in the historical documentation of their existence. Arriving at a sophisticated stand through abstraction, treating sophistication as gaining complexity, not through plentitude in quantity, on the contrary, aiming for a plentitude by densification, executed through reduction. And I found myself as a hunter-gatherer of concepts in a banquet of plenty, celebrating the many lives and afterlives of the abstract. Everything had to do with everything else: mathematics, poetics, philosophy, architecture, rhetorics, literature, music, physics, and so on and so forth. After becoming aware of this, I realized that architecture presents the perfect grounds to start critical and reflexive thinking. It has carved not one niche, but many niches between everything. Well, this is not surprising when we think that even the beginnings of architecture were not within what we would today define as architecture, in philosophy or drama. On the other hand, everything was so much about everything else that we also see philosophy celebrating architecture as its beginnings. Could leaving architecture behind and reaching a point where it cannot be perceived as a homogeneous whole be a valid method to have a satisfying idea of its fulfillment? The proud yet sorrowful glance of Voyager with the golden disk.